Hi all, Mark Rogerson here. Welcome to Jobkeeper 2.0. Coming to you, well not live, but recording to you from my home. All of us at Rogerson Kenny are still in lockdown and working at full capacity, albeit at home. So I wanted to just run through Jobkeeper 2.0. Now this video should be accompanying a newsletter, and the text you're seeing on the screen here is the information that has been written for the newsletter. So it might not be exactly the same format, but it should be the same text. So I just wanted to run through it and give a bit of context around the Jobkeeper 2.0, which might preempt a few questions. We've decided not to go with a full-blown interactive webinar. We think the changes are fairly minor. Most of us have, fairly minor. They're going to be easy to get heads around, I think. And we think sort of the full-blown webinar Q&A type thing isn't probably required, but this year hopefully we'll fill any void that you may have with questions. But if not, obviously and clearly come to us, we're here to help. So Jobkeeper 2.0, today's the 22nd of July 2020. It was announced yesterday that Jobkeeper would be extended until the 28th of March 2021. There's obviously some conditions and bits and pieces in that, but there's effectively been an announcement of an extension. So in the text here, we have that at this stage, it's only an announcement, so it still needs to be debated in Parliament, still needs to become law. The opposition has indicated that they're not going to oppose the proposed or the announced extension. But something to watch, that actually needs to become law. And I'm not sure, with Scott Morrison recently cancelling Parliament, I'm not sure when they're actually going to be sitting, but there's enough time between now and when the current Jobkeeper ends effectively, which is the 27th of September. Just a point to note as well, the Fair Work Act, changes need to happen to the Fair Work Act, or actually extend the changes that happen in the Fair Work Act with the original Jobkeeper legislation. We all assume that's going to happen, but that sort of needs to come as well. So just scrolling down a bit, so your eligibility as an employer. So nothing changes right now. We've already had a few questions on this, but if you're receiving Jobkeeper currently, then that's going to continue through to the 27th of September 2020. There's no retesting or anything right now. So the retesting is on the extension part, okay? And what the extension part is, so Jobkeeper 2.0, there's effectively two tranches and two tests for eligibility. So the first tranche is for payments, and I'll highlight this on the screen. The first tranche is for payments between 28th of September and the 3rd of Jan 2021. And then the second tranche is for payments, Jobkeeper payments between the 4th of January 2021 to the 28th of March 2021, when the announcement yesterday is proposed when it's going to end, the extension is going to end. So I just want to be really clear on that. If you're receiving Jobkeeper right now, that continues until the 27th of September. If you want to be receiving Jobkeeper past that 27th of September date, there's new testing that needs to happen, and Jobkeeper 2.0 is effectively in two parts. So it's 28th of September to the 3rd of Jan, and then you need to retest again for the 4th of Jan to the 28th of March. So I'll just move into eligibility for employers, because like last Jobkeeper, the same thing applies as eligibility for employers and then eligibility for employees. So in terms of eligibility for employers, this here is largely the same. Nothing's really changed. I'm not going to read this text word for word, but basically this 1 March 20 is a critical date. You needed to be basically in business in Australia, etc., etc. And you needed to have a fall in turnover for most of you of 30% or more. And if you remember, there was different tests. So you could test March 20 versus March 19 month of, or April 20 versus April 19, and so on. So those tests are now going to change, which I'll work through in a minute. But that was the test for the original Jobkeeper. So all that sort of still there effectively in terms of, you need to be in business at 1 March 2020, etc., etc. Probably the big change under this or the big thing to note under the eligible employers heading is down the bottom of the screen here. So this 1 March is an absolute date. So that means if you're an employer and you've ceased trading or you've commenced business after 1 March 2020, or you are not pursuing your objectives in Australia at that date, then you're not eligible. Okay, so if you've set up a business post that date and you're struggling, then that's too bad. Or if you've ceased trading and you think you want to go back into trading or something like that, once again, that's too bad. So this 1 March 2020 is a really key date. Okay, scrolling down. So this here effectively was the original, this box here was the original testing in the Jobkeeper in right now. So that was running from the 30th of March to the 27th of September. And if you qualify and you're qualified, you're getting Jobkeeper payments right now, that still continues. Then what happens is in this Jobkeeper, these two columns here effectively are Jobkeeper 2.0, and like I said, in two tranches. So the 28th of September to the 3rd of January. So what we're doing is we need to test actual GST turnover, and that actual GST turnover is for the June quarter and also for the September 2020 quarter. So for most of you, it's going to require the same 30% fall. So it's a much harder test to pass. You know, when we're looking at Jobkeeper original, if we want to call it that, we could simply look at March 20 versus March 19, just that 1 month. Bang, if you passed, you're in. So this here is a lot more onerous. So you've got to have a fall in GST turnover of at least 30% for the June quarter and the September 2020 quarter. So that's to receive the Jobkeeper payments for that period. Then for phase 2 or tranche 2 of Jobkeeper 2.0, we're looking at, and that's between 4th of January 21 and 28th of March 21. We're looking at that passing the decline in turnover test for June, September, and the December 2020 quarters. So it's a really big requirement to pass. So that's 3 quarters, and it needs to be versus the same period last year. So it needs to be the June 20 quarter versus June 19. It needs to be down by 30% or more. The September quarter 20 versus the September quarter 19 needs to be down 30% or more, and then the same with the December. The same with the December quarter. So it's quite onerous. And I go back to, if you're receiving Jobkeeper right now, that will continue through the 27th of September. But if you want to receive Jobkeeper in Jobkeeper 2.0, you need to pass stuff for this period. And then if you want to receive it for the second tranche, you need to pass decline in turnover test for that second period. So hopefully that's nice and clear. Once again, and this hasn't been announced yet, there's alternative tests. So I've got down the bottom here about alternative tests, but the alternative test is when there's no comparative period for the year prior. So say if you're looking at June quarter and you don't have a comparative period for June 19, then there's going to be alternative tests, but those alternative tests are yet to be announced. So I assume they'll be announced a bit closer to date, but there's going to be something, but we don't know what they look like yet. And just a side note, the testing is going to be on actual GST turnover that's reported in your BAS. So clearly, with this first quarter here, testing June and September quarter, will the payments start from the 28th of September? So there's going to need to be, you're going to need to be able to test that September quarter really quickly. You're not going to be able to wait until you've actually prepared your BAS and lodged it, 28 days at the end of the quarter. It's going to be too late. So your accounting software and all the bits and pieces are going to need to be nice and up to date to make that assessment. Okay, so that's eligible employers. Moving on to eligible employees. One of the key things or the key distinctions with Jobkeeper 2.0 is that there's going to be different rates of payment. So you'd be aware at the moment, Jobkeeper, it's a flat $1,500 per fortnight, per JobKeeper fortnight. That's now going to change, and I'll work through that in a minute, but that's now going to change. And what they're linking those payments back, they're linking those payments based on the average hours that employee worked in February 2020. So we're going back some time here, and it's a really key distinction on this eligible employees, depending on what rate they're going to get. Okay, so work through that. So the eligible employees, nothing's really changed here. And once again, going back to JobKeeper original, they had to be an employee at 1 March 2020. They had to be of a certain age. They had to be a long-term casual employee. If they weren't a permanent employee, they had to be an Australian resident or held a 444 visa, etc., etc. So nothing here is really changed in terms of the JobKeeper eligible employee status. Okay, so I won't go over that too much. So just scrolling down here to the JobKeeper payments. So right now, as I said, the JobKeeper payment per eligible employee is $1,500. Then matching into tranche one. So tranche one, if an employee has worked 20 hours or more in February 2020 in that month of, then they'll receive $1,200 per fortnight. So it reduces from $1,500 a fortnight down to $1,200 a fortnight. If they've worked less than 20 hours, they'll receive $750 per JobKeeper fortnight. So that's if they worked less than 20 hours. And like I said just before, the key date is February, is the month of February 20. Okay, so the JobKeeper 2.0, the first tranche is if that employee worked more than 20 hours in February 20, then they're going to receive the new full JobKeeper payment, which will be $1,200 per JobKeeper fortnight. And if they've worked less than that, then it's $750. With the second tranche of JobKeeper 2.0, it's the same test, it's just the rates have dropped. So you can see here the rates go from $1,200 per fortnight down to $1,000 per fortnight for this 4th of Jan to 28th of March. And if they've worked less than 20 hours in that February 20 period, then it's $650 per JobKeeper fortnight. So there's a bit about here with the with that amount. That once again, so to read this out, JobKeeper payments from the 28th of September 2020, or effectively for JobKeeper 2.0, are paid at a lower rate for employees who work less than 20 hours per week on average in the 4 weeks of pay periods before 1 March 2020, which is really the February month. I don't know why they don't say that, but yeah, before 1 March 2020, the 4 weeks. The Commissioner of Taxation will have discretion to set out alternative tests for employees. So you can imagine, for example, there may have been accommodation businesses that were closed for February because of bushfires and employees couldn't work. So there's going to be alternative tests where it wasn't possible for employees to have worked the required hours or whatever it may be. So don't stress if there's been an event or something happened with an employee where they weren't able to work their usual hours during February 2020. There's going to be some alternative tests. We just don't yet have the detail on what that looks like. So when that comes available, we'll be able to share that with you. So just a common question here, can I get JobKeeper until September? And the answer is yes. If you're getting JobKeeper right now, nothing changes. It's only going to be new testing from the end of September to receive JobKeeper 2.0. So I hope that's really clear. And if it's not, or you've got some further queries, please come to your accounting team at Rogers & Kenny. We're more than happy to help. Hope you found this useful, and thanks very much for watching.